r/ask Reddit. Lawyers and police officers of Reddit. What is the dumbest reason you've seen someone get arrested? Someone in my town crashed into a telephone pole and took out the power. The road was closed off while things were sorted out. One lady decided she couldn't take the long way home and crashed into the same telephone pole. She was arrested for drunk driving. Drunk on stupidity? There was no internet. What was she supposed to do? In the 1980s I was a detective in Cape Town. One day while driving in Woodstock we saw a group of people chasing a man. So we assisted. Turned out he was suspected of stealing from a passenger in a third-class train carriage. Those are very crowded with many passengers standing close together. In his pocket he had a pay envelope from a local fish packing place, containing no money but a piece of carton in which was written, "Haha, lekker jeven, Afrikaans for LOL caught you good." The people giving chase insisted that he had pickpocketed someone on the train and jumped out at Woodstock station. Long story short, we traced the owner of the pay envelope. His name and employee number were on the pay envelope, who said that after being pickpocketed twice before and losing a week's wages, he hid his money in his sock and made a decoy with the top of a pack of 30 cigarettes on which he wrote the Afrikaans taunt. The culprit was convicted of theft of an envelope valued at 15 cents and ended up with a criminal record. Can't recall what the sentence was, unfortunately. I'd love to hear what reason for his conviction he told his fellow inmates. "I stole an envelope." I know how annoying it is when people do this, but I'm not a lawyer or a police officer. But I do know the dumbest crime I've ever heard of. My dad's helmet from university. A young man, walking home from a night out, passed a bus depot and decided to take a bus for a spin, help people get home, etc. Upon return to the bus depot, he was arrested on a few charges including drink driving, endangering the public, and a weird form of theft as he returned it without prompting. Following the charges, he was released awaiting trial, likely going to receive a nasty slap on the wrist, some fines, maybe a short prison stay, and a suspension of his driving license. Not long before the trial, he needed a good night out with friends, and he walked home past that same bus depot. It was just too tempting. He served 2 years. You'd think they would have improved security at the bus depot after the first incident. I know, at least put a padlock on the giant gate. I was on a ride along. Guy gets pulled over, hands his brother's it to the officer. It is not a good match. Officer asks him when he was born. He gets that one right. Asks him how old he is. He's off by 2 years. He's being put in the car and the officer says, "You're the first guy I've arrested for bad math. When's your birthday?" 22nd of February. What year? Every year. Get out. Work for a smaller county. Last fall we got a group of people coming me down from a nearby city to rob a hemp farm, thinking it was weed growing along the highway. Several of the crack team of bandits were arrested and lodged. The kicker is it was explained explicitly how dumb it was, that you can't even get high of the stuff. But the very next weekend they came back down and tried to pull it off again. Only this time the farmer was home and ended up holding them all at gunpoint till we arrived. Man, I love me some farmer justice. I'm assuming he was sitting in a rocking chair on the side of the road in the dark holding a shotgun, and said something along the lines of, "What you boys up to on my land?" I was a seasonal officer at a beach resort. One day I was stuck in the substation working on a bunch of reports when I hear another seasonal officer and a senior officer get dispatched to a hotel for unknown reasons. 2 hours later and I'm still doing paperwork. In fairness, I took a break for lunch, and both of the officers come in with arms full of large brown paper evidence bags, like the 2 feet tall ones you add groceries in. They start pulling out the most varied amount of drugs I've seen ever. Something like 2 large vacuum bags of good weed, not the dry shit, 2 pages of LSD tabs, a gallon bag of shrooms and a bunch more. Apparently this 19-year-old had come to the beach to deal. He had paid for a few nights at this hotel. Well, he missed his checkout time and the hotel needed the room, so the housekeeper let herself. She undid the covers and found this buffet of drugs. The kid ended up showing up while the officers were searching his hotel room and they got him. Impressive haul. This is like the epitome of the only break one rule at a time rule. I think it's the epitome of stupid. If you're going to deal drugs, do it from a controlled environment, and don't leave your stash unattended. Don't head out for a late morning constitutional on checkout day with thousands of money's worth of drugs sitting alone in your room. Not me, but when my husband was arrested, he was out on his boat fishing and forgot his life jacket in the truck. Game warden wrote him a ticket, told him he didn't have to appear in court, and to come to the courthouse on the date listed to pay the ticket. Cool, no big deal. The day came for my husband to pay the ticket. He was in the area for work, so he figured he would pop in instead of driving back out there. About 45-minute drive. He went in to pay the ticket, gave it to the girl so she could process it, and she said, "You can't pay this. There is a warrant out for your arrest." My husband was extremely confused and no one would say anything to him about what was going on. A 60-year-old sheriff came over and handcuffed him. While the sheriff was walking him across the road to the jail, he finally explained it to my husband. There was a warrant out because he failed to appear in court. Remember, the game warden said he didn't have to appear in court and even checked on the ticket that he did not have to appear. My husband told the sheriff that, and the sheriff knew. He also knew this particular game warden. According to the sheriff, this was not the first time this had happened. I ended up bailing him out and he was on probation for a year. Dang. Probation for a year for failure to show in court on a life jacket ticket. That's a lot of money for the sheriff's debt in probation fees. Sounds like a racket to me. Not a cop or a lawyer, but I knew a guy in high school who got arrested for impersonating a police officer and pulling over a real life off-duty cop who also happened to know him from high school and found him pretty easily because of that. I never understood why people do this. What is the purpose of pretending to be a cop? Does it give them some sort of power trip or something? Not arrested, but I gave someone an unnecessary ticket. I drove past two girls on a sidewalk and one was holding a beer can. I backed up and pulled up next to them, but now the beer was gone. I ask the girl where it went and she denies having a beer. I tell her to get it and dispose of it. She tells me she's 22 anyway. I respond, great. No reason to get in trouble for alcohol. Just go get the can and properly dispose of it. She denies it again. Again I tell her to just throw it away. Her friend tells her just go get it. She still denies ever having a beer. I walk a few feet back to where I saw them and surprise, there's a beer can on the ground. She got an open container ticket at 22 and a warning for littering. The worst part is after she got the ticket she asks what if I was holding it for my friend because she's not 21? I tell her I wouldn't throw my friend under the bus since she was the one in possession when I saw them, so it wouldn't have mattered. She still didn't seem to grasp that nobody had to get in trouble if she'd just picked it up. TBF to a dumb kid, that probably sounded like entrapment. Just go pick up that open can of alcohol and I swear I won't give you a ticket. I would have doubts myself. Obligatory, not a lawyer or a cop, but my fiance is a cop in a major US city. One of his fellow, very overzealous officers arrested a homeless guy on Christmas Day because he fell asleep in the park. The park closed at 11 PM, so he broke the law. Yep, everyone gives the officer shit for it still to this day. Christmas, homeless, arrested. Was there a downside? Yep, to me it sounds like he got a warm place to sleep for Christmas. Not me, but my grandma was a lawyer. She had to defend someone who stole from a store in a city in Hungary around midnight. The only reason they got caught was because they used some matches to light up the place, and that set the fire alarm off. As if that wasn't enough, a few weeks later in court, my grandma tells the judge to look at the kid, how young he was and that he couldn't have been strong enough to break open the door or carry something outside and steal it. At this point the defendant stands up, points at his muscles and shouts, "Hell yeah, I could." That's basically when my grandma gave up. As far as I know, he got a few months in prison. My dad once got arrested because he didn't believe the cop in civvies was a real cop, so he slapped him. Turns out he really was a real cop. Not my arrest, but someone on my job got a call from an individual staying in one of the hotels stating he thought he saw a man with a gun on the 3rd floor. The whole squad rolls over there and clears the hotel. No gunman found. Turns out the guy who called was just high off and was seeing shit. So the hotel manager asks the guy to leave. He reluctantly does so. An officer and one of the SGTS are there to waiting help escort the man out of the hotel while he gathers his belongings. This man was about to leave when he lifts up the mattress and grabs his crack pipes and a couple of crack rocks, right in front of the officer and sergeant, promptly placed under arrest. Congratulations, you played yourself. Not a police officer or a lawyer, but someone I went to school with took MDMA and then decided to go for a drive, and the police tried to pull him over and he tried to escape around like 8 red lights and crashed into a prison of all places. You have arrived. We call that checking in. I am not a police officer, but I have a friend living in my basement who was arrested and charged for assault with a weapon. The weapon in question was a tomato. He threw it at his girlfriend and she called the cops and pressed charges. He pleaded guilty and is now on probation for 12 months. What an absolute cartoon. Imagine getting into a fight with your girlfriend and trying to break up by booing and throwing tomatoes at her like some heckler from 1850, and then getting weapon charges. Back in my first year of uni, a guy in halls who was the biggest druggie ever got super high and called the police because someone in his flat has lots of drugs and was selling them. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.